Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to RD Reynolds Outdoors, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and podcast. I got my new shirt on today, so you can check that out on the website, rdreynoldsoutdoors.com. Hit that like and subscribe button. Share this video. Podcast is all new. But today, we got a guy from Michigan. We're going to talk decoys. We're going to talk hunting, maybe a little bit of fishing, all kind of other carving stuff we got. Dathon is from Longtail Decoys. So let's introduce our guest today. So who are you?
My name's Dathon Skelton, and I own Longtail Decoys, and we're up in Michigan, about an hour north of Detroit.
So we've been talking about the past couple days back and forth. I'm glad to have him on. I'm going to share his Facebook page here. Now that's the wrong page there, Randall. Share where you can see his Facebook. He's got an Instagram also. We'll talk about that. But here's the Facebook page. He's got all kind of decoys, and I can't wait to get on there and talk about some of these decoys and carvings. And I mean, it's amazing. And I hope he tells the story of how Facebook actually blocked him because they thought he was selling real birds, that his birds were so lifelike. I mean, when you go down and look at these pictures, I mean, it is amazing. And the way I met him a long time ago, I think it was 2 years ago, this decoy right here popped up on his Facebook. It was just a ruddy duck. Now this is a cork. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I thought it was. So this guy is really nice. There's his logo in there, and that is even penciled. There's his name. Got my name on there. But this was 2 years ago. I've never talked to him. This picture popped up, and the reservoir that I hunt at has a ton of ruddy ducks. There's absolutely, at that time, I didn't think anybody made ruddy duck decoys. Come to find out now, don't correct me, YouTube crowd. So I know how y'all are correcting people. I only know 3 people that make ruddy ducks, and two guys are in North Carolina. I think one guy's like really sick. Like when I contacted him about making some before I even got this one, it was right when COVID started. And he's like, man, I'm so sick that I might not even make it. I can't make no decoys. And then this one popped up. And then when I was in the Outer Banks, this is it's got NS on the bottom. Maybe you might know this carver, but this is a old-timey ruddy duck. I mean, that thing is really old. But like I told you, I hunt over this one. I take it every time that I go to that reservoir, and you would not believe the little ruddies that come up to it. So I am an owner of one of your decoys.
Much appreciated.
So where are you? I got it pulled up on the map here. So while I pull this up, you tell us where you at.
We're so basically I'm about an hour northwest of Detroit. So you got your map up there right now. We're a little farther south and east. In Oakland County is the county I live in.
All right, so Oakland County, but you say y'all hunt in this Saginaw Bay, right?
I do. That's mainly where I spend most of my time hunting. I've been hunting up there since I'm almost 50 now, and I've been doing it since I was about 14. My best friend in high school and his family started taking me up there. Good German family, and so yeah, I spend a lot of my time up there. Starting not too far off here. Up here, we get to start shooting geese and teal in September. So,
wow. Ain't gonna be long.
No, I'm chomping at the bit, buddy.
So I have never been to Michigan. I've been to New York to the Niagara Falls part, but is Saginaw Bay kind of like Chicago, windy, like get the cold blowing in and the snow? Is it just like the other lake, or is
Yeah, so Michigan's shaped like a mitten, right? I mean,
right?
that's how we kind of explain things to people that haven't been here. So, between the thumb and the index finger there is Saginaw Bay, which is a big bay off of Lake Huron.
Yep.
And so what Saginaw Bay is, it's very shallow. The inner part of the bay there, so the inside of that, the deepest part is 30 foot, and that's the shipping channel that goes right down the middle. Most of it's, heck, I was out there swimming a couple weeks ago, and I was a quarter mile out, and I was only thigh deep.
Really?
I mean, I'm pretty tall, but still, it's shallow, and everything's based on the wind, and it can get real nasty. I mean, there's people that die almost every year up there fishing and duck hunting, and you gotta know the water, and you gotta know the winds. There's almost like a tide. So if you get a southwest wind, it blows all the water out, and you can be beached on your boat. And if it's northeast, you can be over your waders in an hour. It's crazy. So you got to know what you're doing out there.
Y'all get a lot of divers there?
It's, Michigan's a neat place. We kind of have everything. So obviously the marshes and the river mouths and things like that. We get a lot of, puddle ducks, a lot of wood ducks, mallards, teal, just about everything you guys get down south there. And then on the open water, on the big water, we get a lot of redheads, a lot of bluebills, canvasbacks, a lot of ringnecks, all those kind of ducks. And then if you go way offshore, you get into sea ducks. We have a huge old squaw population. We get white-winged scoters. Occasionally we'll get surf scoters. And last year they shot 2 king eiders out here offshore.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they were immature, but still, I mean, that's pretty amazing.
I bet that person got them mounted.
He was real quiet about it.
I bet so. I mean, like, where'd you shoot that at? Probably wouldn't give that location up. So y'all mostly just go by boat out?
Yeah, that seems to be the trend. A lot of guys will run, mud motor rigs along the shallow stuff, and then guys hunting offshore. Like some of the guys I hunt with, they'll have 23-foot banks, and we'll have 2 layout boats on the side.
Right.
So we can run 6 guys out, have plenty of room. We're safe. It's got a 300 horse motor. So, but yeah, there's just about everything.
So if y'all start hunting in September, when does y'all season normally end? Like ours is just really getting going by January, but I imagine it's really cold up there by January, ain't it?
Yeah, we're ice fishing on Saginaw Bay.
Yeah.
That's where you drill a hole in the ice and you catch walleyes and perch. So, but no, so the way it kind of works in Michigan, I know a lot of other states do these splits, and they'll do 2 or 3 splits. I personally used to hunt in Kentucky a lot with some good friends down there. But in Michigan, the way it kind of works is we have 3 zones, and the middle zone is which I primarily hunt. So, September 1st to the 15th, we can shoot teal only. And then the whole month of September, we can shoot Canada geese, snow geese if we see them, but we really don't see snow geese here. And then our regular duck season opens up. This year they bumped us a week, so we're not opening in the middle zone till I think like October 9th. And then we go straight through to the first week of December. And then like right around Christmas time, they give us 2 days, and it can be really good if you can find water, but most of the time everything's locked up. So you're hunting a river or something like that.
Since the Canada line is just right there with you, do y'all sometimes get licensed to hunt Canada? Or, I mean, do y'all jump back and forth? Say, like, if you're out there and you see the birds over there, do y'all go hunt over there, or is that like a whole total different rule set?
Yeah, it's so like fishing, you can do that. If you're in a boat, let's say we're out, I take you out on Lake St. Clair and they're catching perch over Mitchell's Bay. We can go over there and fish. We just can't anchor or touch land without, if you do that, you got to go through customs and you got to check in. You certainly don't want to cross the line with firearms without them being registered with the Mounties, because you're going to find yourself in a dark room real quick. So to answer your question, though, I do hunt over there. I hunted over there quite a bit before COVID. And then when COVID hit, it was nonsense, getting over there with all the rules and stuff. And now it's kind of back open and it's, where it was. And I honestly, I just don't go there anymore. It used to be a kind of a, I don't want to say a secret, but the pressure wasn't there. And, now it's like, you find your spot with birds and now you go over there and there's not even Canadians there. It's all guys from Ohio and New York and Michigan and everywhere else.
Yeah, everybody wants to go to Canada to hunt.
Yeah, they do. I mean, there's two reasons they go there. One, there's birds there. And secondly, you can go over there and shoot 6 hen canvasbacks if you want to. So, in Michigan, you get 2.
Right.
Or most states you get 2 or 1, So that's the big draw, I think, over there is the liberal limits.
Right. So you mentioned earlier that you started at a young age. So how long have you been hunting ducks?
Oh, I would say 14, because that's in Michigan. Back in the day then, that's when you could legally shoot a firearm for, deer and small game and stuff like that. So I grew up out in a rural area called Holly, Michigan. And we had about 30 acres, but it was all farm country and swamp bottoms around me. And I was that weird kid that would get off school and I'd come home and I had a golden retriever and we'd go shoot pheasants and shoot ducks and squirrels and rabbits and deer and you name it. I mean, that's how I grew up. So
that's probably a lost art up there, ain't it?
There's parts of Michigan. I would say a big part of it is still pretty rural, but it's not the same. You just don't the outdoors, as you probably see everywhere and talk to everybody, you just don't see these kids involved, and it's sad. It really is.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a trait, but I can only imagine how hard it is for me to take my kids duck hunting here in South Carolina versus Michigan weather, where it's hard to get the kids bundled up in what we think is cold weather when it's 20 or 30 degrees or 33 degrees, much less Michigan weather. So
yeah, well, and that's what's nice about like the teal seasons and the early goose season. I mean, we're getting ate alive by mosquitoes, and I'm out there in a t-shirt, and so like, I kind of had kids a little younger than my friends, but their kids are kind of just starting to hunt now, and I take them out. When we take them out, like opening weekend when it's still pretty, warm and teal season. Of course they complain about the mosquitoes, but are they going to go out there with us at the end of November when, we're breaking ice through, the first 150 yards to get out and set decoys? And probably not.
No,
I got some buddies that won't even do it.
Is there anything else you hunt currently up there?
So, yeah, I do deer hunt. Deer hunting was my dad's thing. November 15th is our firearm season here, and we kind of call it Hillbilly Christmas. It's kind of like our little joke up here because, the kids aren't in school. Everyone's out in the woods deer hunting. Michigan is definitely deer hunting is the thing here.
Really? In November?
November 15th is our opening day of firearm season, and it goes for 2 weeks. Our archery season starts in October, so I like to deer hunt. That was my dad's thing. I lost him some time back, and So I go out with his gun, and that's just kind of my thing, going out opening day. And I'm not real picky. I shoot a nice deer for the freezer for me and my wife because we enjoy it. And then I do some pheasant hunting up here. Our wild pheasants really are kind of gone. There's too many coyotes up here, but we go to the pheasant farms, and it's easy hunting. My lab loves it.
That's on my list to do this year is pheasant hunt. Never pheasant hunted up till 4 years ago. I never duck hunted. So 4 years ago, I picked up duck hunting and turkey hunting, and I haven't financially recovered yet. So
You probably won't.
Yeah, I grew up dove hunting like almost every year, but any other birds, never hunted them. So pheasant is on the list for this year.
Yeah, I'd like to dove hunt, to be honest with you, because we can't shoot doves in Michigan. And
like the whole state, or
I think they had one county they opened up, like down by Ohio. I think Van Buren County or something like that. They opened up for 1 year, and you could go out and shoot like 4 doves, and it's like, I mean, that's a nice snack, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think ours is like 11 or 12, and you got to have that. I mean, by the time you clean them up, I mean, you're only talking a quarter size meat, but I mean, that's some good eating though.
Oh yeah. I've had them at out of state and stuff like that on trips, but I've never really done a dove hunt like where hey, we're gonna do a dove hunt, and that's something I'd really like to do. And
Well,
then
you come to South Carolina, that we might not have a whole lot of ducks, but we got a whole lot of doves. And Daddy Duck's in the group. He's on the chat. He said, "Hey, but he does a lot of dove hunting. I mean, DNR now it's a public fields, but South Carolina sets up the fields for people to public dove hunt. I mean, other than it being public." And there's people out there, one bird flies over and 40 people shoot at it, and they all want to claim it. But we got doves. That is definitely for sure.
I do also like to turkey hunt, and one thing I'm really into is collecting mushrooms,
Right.
Wild mushrooms, and so that kind of coincides with turkey season in the spring. So it's kind of nice. You can go out and sit tight for a couple hours in the morning, and then do a little scouting, and you find morel mushrooms and some other ones. And
some of them bring pretty good money, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, morels are crazy. I don't even know what they are now. I think they're like $100 a pound or something crazy.
No, I see people talking about they going turkey hunting and they looking for that, and it's basically like a side gig that they bring in a large amount of money by just collecting them mushrooms.
Yeah, it's crazy. I kind of did it for a little while. Then this young kid that works for me, he's really, I mean, he's crazy into it. He's out scouting using Onyx and marking dead elm trees, and like most guys are doing for deer hunting, he's doing for mushrooms. So
Daddy Duck commented and said the last time he ate a wild mushroom, he saw 6-foot chickens. that would be what I would do. Be like, oh, look at this. This is the right mushroom. And then, I'd be either fell out or picked the wrong mushroom. The only mushrooms I like is from the grocery stores.
Well, I tell you what, we got, so there's different kinds of mushrooms that go through the season, and right now we're getting, puff balls are good to eat. And then last week we found a bunch of, they call them chanterelles and golden oysters. And I tell you what, man, I could have overdone it big time. Those things are it's like eating a steak. It's so good. And you just put it in a pan with some butter and garlic and just let it ride until it, firms up a little bit. And oh man, delicious. I'm telling you.
I love mushrooms too. I love them. So we talked a little bit about fishing. How much fishing do you do up there?
I love to fish. When I was younger, it was a lot of fly fishing for trout and salmon and stuff like that. And nowadays I do a lot of ice fishing.
In the same bay.
we do. Sometimes, you got to be careful, with the ice. Also, the wind and everything else. So, but we do a lot of inland lake fishing too for bluegills, crappies, perch, walleye, pike. And then we go up to Michigan has two peninsulas, the upper and the lower. And we go up to the upper in the winter, and it's crazy up there. I mean, it's like, they get 10, 12 feet of snow up there sometimes. They average about 6 to 8 feet.
We wouldn't know. The South would shut down, and people would die in the South because, we ain't made for that. Our power grid ain't made for it. We get a little dusting, and the bread and milk is gone. It is. We're not made for the snow.
I was in Kentucky duck hunting in January, and they got 3 inches of snow, and we're going down to the boat launch, 4-wheel drive. That's nothing for us. It's every day. And
yeah, but where y'all live, the people know how to handle it. Like the crews, they're out there cleaning the roads or salting it. They're dumping all that ice and stuff back in the water. We don't have none of that.
Yeah, they told me they only had one plow truck for the entire state.
Yeah.
But you gotta, it doesn't really happen down there. So why would you, have that? So
that's exactly right. So you did send me a video of this amazing hunting lodge. Talk about it. Tell me about this hunting lodge. If I could pull it up and show it on the video, it would be amazing. But tell us about this lodge.
So we call it camp, and it's been there since 1920, and the original area around it was diked in. So you got a 1 by 2 mile diked in marsh from Saginaw Bay, and it was made by the owner of Chris Craft Boats, and his name was Christopher Smith, and he was a hunter. He made the Chris Craft boat line. He was a decoy carver, and so they built this huge lodge in this big marsh, and then they had some outcroppings, and so they had a couple of smaller clubs out there, and we're the only one left. We call it Mallard Club.
Like, how many member? Is it member based, or is it like family based, or?
It's member based, but we're like a family. And
I saw the videos, and it looked like one of them places, you just dream about going to. You don't carry no cell phone. It just looks like a peaceful getaway.
It is. and yeah, I can't wait to get up there every time every chance I get. And so there's a group of us. I think there's about 8 or 10 of us. There's a couple guys that have passed, and but we are like family. The two brothers, Franz and Stefan, they're like my brothers. We talk every single day, and they're cousins. We talk every day on the phone, and that's the fun thing about. I know the phones can be annoying, but we're chitting and chatting and talking about duck hunting, and we're talking about all kinds of stuff, and we enjoy that place. It's just something that doesn't exist anymore. It's old school. There's no power. It's just all propane lights, propane fridge, propane this, propane that, hand pump well. Your cell phones don't work very good. And talk about just, the access and just the duck hunting and there's good deer hunting and stuff too around there, as I'm finding. So, but yeah, it's something special. It's so dear to me. If I didn't have that in my life, and going back, 35 years, I don't know where I'd be. It kind of saved my soul, to be honest with you.
Probably kept you out of trouble too.
Yeah, you know, when you get into that late teens, you know, a lot of kids can go one way or the other, and there's a lot of influences. And my influence was my best friend's dad saying, "Hey, let's go up duck hunting." And
Yeah.
they took me up, and I come from Holly, Michigan, shooting mallards and wood ducks on a creek, and then they take me up there, and the first duck I shoot is a canvasback. I go, wow, you know.
Yeah. I mean that. I mean, if we could draw a picture, I mean, it looks like something that should have been on like a duck stamp or something. I mean, the marsh grass in the back. I mean, it just every hunter would just want to be there.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, we used to not see a lot of people out there, but we were talking about in that episode of Michigan Outdoors there that you know the DNR's been buying all these other clubs up and access and all that, so they're putting boat launches everywhere. So now we're seeing more and more people. Um, you know, the regulars and the old timers that have been around, we kind of got a rule up there: if the flag's up, we're there, and we've done that because you know we talked about the weather, right? And
Right.
you know, we've had guys flip their boats and show up shivering, and we get them in and get them warm, give them some coffee, give them a dry shirt, and you know, help them get back, you know, to where they got to go. And so yeah, we're starting to see more and more people now. And really, what changed it is the advent of the mud motor boat, because the marsh really isn't, you know, 20 years ago nobody had a mud motor up there. You know, we had a couple airboats here and there, but those were kind of stayed out on the big water. And, um, you know, the only way to get around this marsh was with a kayak or a canoe. So you never saw anybody out by us. And now you got guys, you know, with the big gator tracks flying down there. So, you know, that part of it's a little sad, but it's still, you know, it's just such a special place. I don't really know how to explain it. You can't put it into words. You just got to experience it.
I can believe it by that video. So let's start talking about one of the main reasons I had you on. Let's talk about these decoys. I mean,
Decoys.
let's talk about them. So how long have you been carving decoys?
Decoy carving. So I'll tell you exactly because I got my first one right here. And this was March 6th, 2019. And it's Harlequin that made it out of cork. And the head I made out of a 2x4. They had a piece of 2x4, and it ain't perfect. You know, the eyes are a little crossed, and it's not, you know, perfect. But that was the first one I did, and I did that all by myself. I didn't have any lessons.
So what made you want to start carving your own decoys?
You know, it kind of goes back to I grew up with kind of a, you know, my dad didn't make a lot of money, and there was 4 kids and my mom. And so my mom kind of had her little hustles, you know, like garage sales and antiques and stuff like that. And she was pretty good at doing little artsy projects and stuff. So I started getting into duck hunting, and she'd go to these garage sales on Saturdays and Sundays, and she'd buy these old decoys for me, and that's what I'd hunt over. And I come to find out some of the ones I still got are worth a lot of money, and I painted them all up when I was younger and ruined them. But
You
so
didn't know.
no, I didn't know. And you know, I just having fun, just a kid. So, but really, my kids, I didn't really duck hunt a whole lot, not like I do now for a while, because I was raising my daughter and my son, and then they're through college now, and they're doing real well in life. So you know, I kind of started having to find something to do. My wife and I have been married 26 years, so you know, we don't have to be talking to each other every second of every day. We have a good, healthy relationship. And so I started to get back into duck hunting, and I really hated Facebook. I hated it. My wife got on it. It just consumed her life for a little while. And I just really hated it. And then I got on it, and I was like, you know what? Social media is what you make out of it, what you want from it, right?
Yep.
And so I got on these duck hunting pages, and I was like, this is awesome, man. There's a page on here on guys who make decoys, and I want to make my own decoys. So I started making them out of foam. I'd buy like foam insulation board and glue it together.
I lost you there. I bet the phone started ringing. Well, he'll get connected back. There you go. I lost you there just for a second. Phone ring?
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay.
I sent out a big message to everybody. Don't bother me. I'm on a big program.
I got you. You were talking about the foam and you glue it together, and then you went to spinning circles there for a second.
Yep. So I made these. I made a dozen redhead decoys, and I went up to the bay, and I was launching at this spot I like to hunt, and I was putting the boat back on the trailer, and this fellow walks up and he looks in my boat. He says, "Where'd you get them decoys?" I said, "I made them." He's, the hell you did, I said, "No, I did. Seriously, I made them." And he says, "Okay." He goes, "Well, I want to buy them." And I said, "Well, first off, I don't even know what they're worth. I don't, He says, well, follow me up to town to the bank. And he goes, "I'm going to give you some money." So that's kind of how it started. So I kind of got an idea in my head. So I started kind of making some more. And then I kind of started painting some of these E. Allen decoys, which was really nice because they're really good carvings, and they're mold made with urethane foam. So you learn to paint really well with them. So, and then a couple local carvers, they told me, said, quit wasting your time with that foam. You need to start carving. So that's kind of how I started getting into it in like 18 into 19. So I carved that bird, and I did a couple other ones that were horrible.
So probably my ruddy duck then probably is not too far off from that then, because if it's 2013, I know I've hunted over this one 2 years.
Yeah.
So this is it ain't as old as the original, but it's one of the earlier of your designs then.
Yeah. That, especially with that cork bird. I did a lot of cork birds in there. Cork is a lot different than wood. Cork is more, you can't get the detail, obviously you can with wood, right?
Right.
So, but I love the way it floats. It sits high in the water, especially, for visibility. But so I started kind of carving and messing around, and then I met this fellow over here in Michigan. He's a world champion carver, really nice guy. His name's Gary Hansen. So I started going to his house on Wednesday nights for like 3 hours, and I did a couple redheads with him, and I mean I was advancing really, really quick, and then COVID hit, and Gary was older. I think Gary's upper 70s, maybe even 80. And had some minor health issues and stuff. And he says, my wife doesn't want people at the house anymore, which is totally understandable.
Right.
So after that point, I just kind of just started figuring stuff out. And then as I started to grow a little bit, other carvers kind of took me under their wing, from afar. And we've just become really good friends. And, and they'll say, "Hey, try this, try that." They send me patterns, and so now I have this huge network of all these different people, and and I'm helping some younger guys out right now, because people help me out, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. So, how many carvings do you say you already done so far? You got
hundreds. I could probably tell you in about an hour, but when I first started out, when you started making something that becomes in demand, right? Like, "Hey man, you make nice gunning cork decoys. I want 20 of them, or I want this, or I want that." So you're kind of rushing. And some of the older carvers, they said, your work could be at another level if you just slowed down and tried this and tried that. And so as of lately, I'm not putting out as many, but I feel that I'm progressing and I'm doing a wider variety of things. I mean, not just ducks, but birds and fish and all kinds of stuff. And partly, Artie, a big part of this is, I've had my main career is golf. I've run golf courses for 30 years. My dad ran his golf course for 40 years, and I worked for him since I was 10 years old. And this is my sanctuary. This is my release to come home.
Get away from something.
At noon at work, and I've always been really good at what I do with grass and stuff, but I'm, sitting there eating a sandwich and I'm going, man, I got to finish that ruddy duck tonight, man. And I want it to look like this. I'm passionate about it. And so, I've kind of changed the way I've done things, and I'm doing earns for people now too, which is, to me, I mean, we all love our dogs and stuff, but I've done a couple earns for people. And right. I've got a big project coming up with some swans where somebody's grandma passed, and I'm doing 8 swans for this family.
Wow.
And that's a very humbling thing to me. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's somebody's putting that into your hands, that's humbling to me. I mean, I got a little teary-eyed by it. I'm not going to lie. So.
Right, that's what I told my wife. I said I want some of my ashes in a decoy, so that's on the list. So, if I kick the bucket between here and the time you kick the bucket, you might have another one. But hopefully that ain't no time soon. But that's on the list, and getting my ashes put in some ball shot shell to be spread around. Give some of the kids to hunt. Just take me along. Some of these hunting journeys.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. Boss is up here in Michigan, so right. I see a lot of that kind of stuff up here. So, right. But I've done a lot of decoys, and I hope to do a lot more.
What's your favorite one to carve?
Oh my! I'm gonna get in trouble if I don't say this. Okay. But a Buffy.
The buffalo heads.
Yeah, and the only reason why is because my wife's name is Buffy.
Hey, my Boykin Spaniel is Buffy too. All our animals have been named off of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So
yeah, she's never heard that one.
She is Buffy the Dog Slayer. So I don't know how good she's going to do retrieving this year. I've been working with her, but that's her name, Buffy the Dog Slayer.
Yeah, I do I've done a lot of buffalo heads for my wife and stuff like that. But I'll be honest with you, I think my favorite bird to do is I love doing teal. And here's the blue wing.
Right.
And I actually this is going to go out to Pennsylvania next week for they're having a little decoy float out there, and so I'm going to send a couple other birds with it. And it's not really my thing. I don't, it's like a lot of these guys get really into the carving championships and stuff, and it's all cool and stuff, but I don't know, it's just not my thing. I feel it kind of, it's not what I'm doing, and there's a lot of politics sometimes with it, and I do it because I love it, and I make a few bucks and stuff like that, but when I get somebody like you holding up a ruddy duck saying, man, I love this thing and I hunted it on the reservoir, or I got a picture from Doc down in Kentucky last week, and this guy's got a collection like you wouldn't believe, and he's buying decoys from me. I mean, I'm just a bum up in Michigan, and to me, I mean, that means more than anything.
Yeah.
So
I imagine, like I said, as soon as it's just one day, just scrolling through Facebook. I mean, it could have been Instagram. I don't even remember. I just scrolling through. Here's a buffalo head. I mean, a ruddy. I'm like, that's a ruddy. I'm like, and as soon as it posted, I'm like, is it for sale? And you're like, yeah. And then I got it. And I was like, well, that's awesome. Now I need like more than one.
Well, you know, you know what I really like to do, and it's funny because I live in Michigan. We don't even have these in Michigan, but I'm obsessed with these birds. You guys get, you know, the light bellied version. My daughter lives in Seattle. She gets the dark bellied version, but I just finished this Brant. And
now they don't come to us. I think they stop at the Outer Banks in North Carolina.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah. Now I'm not. Again, the YouTube bandwagon people or the Facebook bandwagon might jump on. I don't recall too many people shooting them in South Carolina. I know in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, they get a lot of them. Now, granted, I am going to say the Outer Banks is only 6 to 8 hours from my house. So technically, I'm sure they do come into South Carolina, but they don't come. I don't recall anybody around me shooting.
Well, I'll tell you something funny. Is a few years back, we went down. My brother was at the time living in Florida and teaching at University of Florida in Gainesville. So I rented a house out on Tybee Island, and we kind of went down for a week, and you know, and so we're doing some red fishing and, you know, trout fishing and all that good stuff, and we went up into this marsh, and this guy was telling us for sheephead. And so I'm sitting there on this like public fishing dock, fishing for these sheephead. I said to my brother, I said, "You see that right there?" He goes, "What?" I said, "That's a hen eider, common eider, in the marshes down in, I mean, basically Georgia, right?"
That's
Georgia.
Right. Tybee Island is in Georgia. You got Savannah, and then you go through Savannah, and you go through like a 2-lane road out to Tybee Island, and that's some beautiful marshes too. But yeah, and I don't know too many people hunt down there. So
I tell you what, I was telling my brother, you know, he's focused on catching these redfish, and I'm just looking at all these ducks down there, and there's not a soul out in those marshes. And I was like, man, you go down there, and the ringnecks and bufflehead, and there's scoters, there's all kinds of stuff in the marshes down there. So I know it's legal to hunt. I just don't know why nobody does it down there. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it is a pretty good ride out there too. So
yeah, I guess I could see where that, you know, the access. Maybe there's not access either, because
I think it's 45 minutes from Savannah, downtown Savannah. I think it was, because we were down there. I think it was 45 minutes to an hour from Savannah.
Yeah,
beautiful down there.
Oh, it is. I loved it down there. I think we've been down there twice now, but most of the times, believe it or not, I go north when I go on vacations. I go way up into northern Michigan, and I'm just a big burly dude, man. I like it cold.
I heard that. So what's the hardest to carve? Pintail, maybe?
You know, I think I struggle with pintails. I feel like I struggle with them. I mean, I'm actually working on one right now. It's pretty much finished, but I would say, do you know what? You'll probably chuckle at this, because a lot of guys will just paint a black duck black. But if you want to paint a black duck, like a real, like a big fat black duck up in Maine, up in that, you know, or northern Michigan, we call them redfoots up here because they got bright red feet in the winter. That is one of the hardest birds to paint to me. It's, you know, you're mixing, you know, browns and marine blues and all these crazy colors that you would never. When I was talking to a really good painter up this way, and he was saying, "Oh, you got to mix some marine blue in with that black," and I'm like, "Well, how would I want blue on a black duck?" You know, and but then once I started understanding paint colors and stuff, it made sense. But I really think a black duck is one of the hardest ones to paint, and then to actual like creating a carving. Um, Probably some of the eiders, the king eiders, spectacled eiders.
Yeah, I imagine their nose and head area is pretty tough.
Yeah, the lobes, they have big lobes on them, and they can be kind of tough to do from time to time. So, but I've done all species in North America. I've done every single duck in North America, plus stuff all over the world.
So how do you protect the tails on the pintails with that basically cork? I mean, is it fragile? I mean, I know a lot of people probably buy them to collect them and put up, but like you said earlier, there's got to be people hunting over them too. So how do they protect them tails from breaking off?
So, like, if you're doing if somebody says, "Hey," whenever somebody gets a bird from me, I ask them, "What are you doing with it?" And it doesn't mean that I'm trying to cut corners or anything like that. I'm just trying to. Every bird I make is specific to that person.
Right.
People send me pictures all the time. I want that. I want this painted like that. And I'm like, it's not going to look like that. Well, why not? And I said, because it's kind of artwork. I mean, Picasso didn't paint the same things over and over and over, right?
That's right.
So I tell them, I says, it's going to be a little different, but I get what you're looking for, but it's not, this isn't Walmart,
Yeah.
But to answer your question, when you get birds with sprigs, like longtails, pintails, even widgeon, if somebody wants really good gunning birds, like they're going to hunt them, I just tell them, hey, we're just going to put a small sprig on there. And it's going to be nice and wide, made of wood, but if they really want something long, there's different woods and different materials. Like I just did a longtail for a guy here in Michigan. And, so I carved the tail as insert, in the body was made of Tupelo wood, which is very soft. And then I used, I had some white oak. And so I made the tail out of white oak and inserted it into the decoy. And, it's all glued in and screwed in, and then everything's blended with epoxy and stuff to hide seams and all that kind of stuff.
So what materials do you normally use? Like what's you normally using?
A lot of white pine, a lot of basswood, Tupelo. I really like cedar, but I'm allergic to it. And
really?
Yeah, it's pretty common. It's got some oils in it, and it can kind of mess you up a little bit. So I remember I got so excited. This guy calls me and he says, "Hey man, I got a whole pallet of cedar for you." I mean, a pallet, like 150 decoys worth, right? And I'm like, that's going to keep me busy all year. And I got a great price on it. It was beautiful wood. And I'd never carved with cedar. Well, that night, man, I'm cutting this stuff up on my bandsaw. I'm doing all the stuff. The next morning, I woke up and it looked like Rocky Balboa went to town on my face. And I started freaking out. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So then I was like, all right. So I called a couple of carver buddies and I'm like, hey, you guys ever have a reaction to cedar? And they're like, oh yeah, like I don't use that stuff. And some guys it doesn't bother, but I tell you honestly, man, if you get some good northern white pine and it's kiln dried down to 8%, it is beautiful to work with, and it smells so nice. It's just fragrant, and I love it. That's my favorite. But unfortunately, it's kind of hard to get kiln dried pine that's not full of knots and cracks and chucks, and so it's getting harder and harder.
It can't be too hard, because Home Depot and Lowe's, they buy all them pines that got all the knots in it. You go to look at them 2x4s, them things are waving. I mean, you just walk in the front door and the 2x4 is waving at you.
Yeah, they're
they got more knots in them than they got straightness.
Yeah. I've got friends that actually buy lumber from like Home Depot and they glue it together and they make some beautiful decoys. Got him Dave Ludington over in Illinois. He was doing that for a while, and I mean Dave makes just stunning decoys, and so. But I'm a real big fan. I'm a Michigan man, and I'm really big into supporting Michigan and local small business.
Right.
I've partnered up with so many different companies, and I mean, we brewed our own beer last summer. We had a Longtail Ale, and a local brewery. My family's real big into, my son brews beer and all that kind of stuff, and it's just kind of part of our culture up here. And he was kind of came out of COVID, and a lot of those places weren't doing so good. And I said, hey man, I get a lot of people going through my social media. I said, let's do a Longtail Ale. I said, I don't want any money out of it all. I'm just going to try to help you out. And I think we sold 100 gallons of beer in a week. We sold it all out in a week. And, and I just did that to help out a local guy, I mean, it was fun brewing my own beer, and I had my logo on it, and we got some decoys up in the bar and stuff. But I tell you what, that was a riot. I mean, and that's a bucket list for me. Okay, brewed my beer. All right, what's next?
I heard that. We have a guy in South Carolina that makes duck calls, and Daryl Newman, the waterfowl company, and he just started. I don't drink, so I don't know what terminology it is, but I think it's called Screaming Woody, and his just made it in the stores, and it's pretty cool. Definitely see, a local, and it has a wood duck on it, so it's pretty cool.
I think I might have seen something about that on social media, but there's so many different things. There's the coffees and everything else now, so.
So what's the time frame on one? How if somebody says, "Hey, I want one that you probably don't have on the shelf," what's the time frame?
Time to make it, or like lead time?
Time. You start with just raw material. How long does it usually take you to make one?
I mean, seriously, I can round out a gunner. So like let's just say let me grab a decoy here. All right, hooded merganser.
Yep.
Cork body. It's got a wood tail insert. Pine head, and it's not an overly fancy decoy. It's what I call a gunning decoy. It's got the marks where you should have them for identification, and it's clean, and it floats good. So that bird right there, I'd say I'd have about 2 hours into carving the head, the body, gluing the tail in, and sanding it down and all that. And then, you got to seal it, and then so then it sits for a day or two, depending on the humidity and all that stuff. And then painting, painting can take anywhere from 45 minutes to 4 days. I mean, just depending on what I'm doing, and if I'm using acrylics or oils. If I like some birds, I do some pretty kind of collectible type stuff, or like I'm doing an urn for a guy, and that's going to be, it's for his dad, and he's a really good friend of mine. So I'm probably going to spend 2 months on that thing. I mean, I'm going to ticky tacky that bad boy. So, but yeah, I mean, I would say, I would say on average, probably, 3 or 4 hours, but it's all divided up, into different times. And then again, it's like you got a really nice gunning ruddy there that you showed, everybody. And, but like, a wood ruddy that I got a little more detail in, carving the, the feathers in it and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I really don't do.
I mean, even this ruddy, you talking about feathers on there. I don't know how that's going to show up on camera. I know it's white up in here where the feathers really are, but I mean, it's really pretty. And when it's not getting hunting over, I can't speak. Right here is my ruddy mount. I got a hen and a drake here. I'm waiting on getting one in summer plumage, which it might take me a while, but that's usually where it sits. When it ain't getting hunted over, that's where it sits. And I usually just use a Texas rig right on the front. But I took all that off for this video where I wasn't having to be messing around with the Texas rig.
Right.
So what was your biggest order? Like, what's the biggest one somebody's called you and said, hey, I want how many of what?
The biggest order I ever did, they weren't carved birds. It was kind of when I was just getting ready to go to kind of start dabbling around with carving, right? And this guy calls me and he says, hey, I need a dozen king eiders, I need a dozen harlequins, and I need a half a dozen longtails. And I said, okay, when do you need them? He goes, they got to be on a ship to go to St. Paul Island, Alaska by Christmas Day. And this is like Thanksgiving weekend.
Wow.
And I says, well, you know, I said, the only way we're going to do this is if you buy like some foam decoys or something like that, and we just paint them, you know. But as far as carved decoys go, I've got a rig that's up in the very, very northern part of Michigan right now. I think we did 16 decoys at one time. And they're all divers. They're all buffle heads, redheads, ringnecks, a mixture. And I was really excited to do those. And his family goes up. I think they hunt maybe 1 week out of the year. They just wanted to have a nice rig of decoys to go up there, and they sit up on the mantle when they're not, being hunted. And so I'd say that's probably the biggest one. But I've got customers. One of my customers has probably got 25 of my decoys. I mean, they're all from different time periods, but he sends me pictures of his house, and it looks like my decoy shack. It's actually, I'm very honored by it. So,
where's the furthest one that you know of has ever been?
The furthest decoy I have?
Oh, away from where you are.
Oh gosh. I've got birds on Adak Island. I've got birds on St. Paul Island, Alaska. I've got a SMU decoy I carved. That's, I believe, in Russia now.
Really?
I've got a Eurasian widgeon that's in Italy. I mean, that's about. I've got them all over the place, man.
That's something to be proud of. I mean, that's the coolest thing. When I started this YouTube channel a year ago, I've met people from Italy and all over this world. And I mean, it's like, so they're carrying on a conversation from somebody in South Carolina that's probably on the worst states to duck hunt at. I mean, you don't hear nobody be like, I'm going to South Carolina to duck hunt. But, I mean, the hunting group is a small group for sure.
It is. And, and that's the thing that I truly, other than doing the work itself, the decoys and stuff, but the relationships with the people and the stories.
Right.
And I always say this, and I said this on some other shows that I've done and stuff, is, you just showed us an old ruddy duck that you found floating out on the ocean, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if that thing could talk to you.
Oh, absolutely.
The people that hunted over it. And, I've got decoys in this shop right here that are from the 1800s. I would love to hear some conversations about sneak shooting with the pump boat and all these kind of crazy characters. And
Oh, absolutely. Back at them days, they were shooting them. It
500
was
birds a day.
Yeah, what was it, blaster guns or whatever, where the barrels were so long and big, and they were just stuffing it full of everything.
A punt gun.
Yeah.
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 So that's the thing about it, is that the community of carvers is just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And but the people that I've met doing this, guys like Mike Braun out in Jersey. I mean, this guy's just treated me so well. Pat Gregory in Illinois. He's a third generation carver, and Pat's, he's up there and he's getting older. And I mean, his great grandfather Bartow was a carver, and all this rich family history, and all these great people that I've met. And then, you never know. The one thing I've learned about this is you never know who these people are and what their stories are.
Right.
So, I'll get a call, and this is kind of touching, actually. I get a message from a fellow. I do a lot of cardinals, and if you know what a cardinal represents, if you've lost somebody in your life,
that's right.
When you see a cardinal, it's supposed to be, their spirit or whatever. And so I didn't know, and the guy sent me a message. He wanted a cardinal, and I was doing a bunch of them, and kind of fell behind. And he reached out and he says, "I really need to get this cardinal." I says, "I'll have it for you by the end of the week. I promise. I don't care if I sleep tonight. I'll get it done for you." So I send this cardinal out to him. And about a week later, I'm pretty good with the email and the tracking and stuff with shipping, and so people know what's going on and all that kind of stuff. He sends me a picture, and here's this cardinal sitting on a shelf next to a pine box steamed kind of walnut cherry kind of, and a picture of a lady on top of it. He had just lost his wife to cancer. And he sent me this message with this picture, and he says, "This cardinal gets me through every single day." That's how bad this guy was struggling. And it hit me, man. I mean, I told my wife, I'm sitting there bawling. Here's this big 260 pound, 6'4", big Michigan burly bearded dude, and I'm sobbing. And I says, "Holy smokes!" And so that's what I mean about the stories and meeting these people, and it's just simply amazing, and it's just growing and growing, and I just can't wait for the next chapter to start, and I don't know what it's going to be.
And that's why I like duck hunting. Like me and you, we can go somewhere, meet up, and we got one thing in common: it's duck hunting. And you get to talk to people when you're in the blinds. You really get to, like a brothership, like a friendship, when you in them blinds. I mean, like the world just basically stops, and you see sunrises, and you have awesome hunts, and sometimes you just have a good breakfast. But duck hunting,
it's sociable.
Absolutely.
You
can't do that with deer hunting.
No, and not shoot a deer anyway.
No. Exactly. Like when I take my 8-year-old deer hunting, and be like, shh. I mean, like, Daddy, when they gonna come out? Well, they're not coming out now that you talked. But duck hunting, I mean, you can be like, all right, look, you see them flying, you can talk your way through stuff. I mean, I love duck hunting.
Yeah, I do too. And when I was younger, it was like, oh, I got a kill limit. And I'll be honest with you, man, nowadays, so I think it was 2 years ago now. I'd never killed an adult Drake goldeneye, common goldeneye. And there's this little cove kind of by our place, and they just load up in there, but I just never targeted them. And I mean, they don't show up until it's I mean, the ladies singing, you know what I mean? The ice is coming in, and that's when they show up. It's nasty. So I said, this year, I am going to carve some goldeneye decoys, and I'm going to hunt over them, and I'm going to go shoot a Drake goldeneye, and I don't care if I shoot another duck. And that's what I did. And then now what I'm doing, and I got this great group of guys at our camp. I mean, they're my blood brothers, they're my family. And so we have some fun with it. And so, you know, we'll take my decoy out and, you know, we'll hunt over it. And I'll write down a story on the bottom of that decoy.
Exactly what that one right there is. It's just a mallard decoy. Last year we went kayak hunting right off of the coast of South Carolina, and we just found this decoy. And I'm like, all right, guys, I got a Sharpie. We're signing the bottom. This is kind of like we're gonna remember this trip by this decoy. Exactly what you saying, and that's it hanging right there. That is a memory from that trip.
Yep, yeah, and so that's what we're kind of doing now is, you know, these guys up at camp, you know, I've got a lot of decoys up there now too, but that'll, you know, be going up. Well, they'll be going up there for the season or whatever. But you know, I said, hey, you know, opening day, I made this king eider, and I was like, whoever shoots the first duck of the season every year they get to sign this decoy, and they're the king for the rest of the year, and they got bragging rights, you know. And so that's what I mean by like having fun in these stories. And, you know, one of the guys I hunt with, I've known Ed a long time, and we went out and I did this preening pintail, you know, reaching back. He kept looking at that decoys, man, that thing is slick. He goes, I like that. So he took off Saturday afternoon. He had to be home he was ringing the bells in church, he said. So I said, all right. So I put that pintail in his locker. And, you know, the next week, he's kind of an older school guy. He's got a flip phone. He only does email. He doesn't text or any of this other nonsense we do. And he says, why is there a pintail decoy in my locker? I said, because you said you liked it. And he says, you're giving it to me. I said, yeah, I didn't run out of room in my locker and put it in yours. But no, I mean, in seriousness, that's what I love. And, you know, even I get pictures from customers. You know, this one guy, he was so excited this year. He kept telling me, he says, you know, I want a decoy, but I got to save some money. I'm broke right now. And so he finally saved up some money, and I did him a cork mallard. And that first hunt, he showed me a picture, a pile of wood ducks and mallards on this decoy, man, blood and feathers everywhere. And he was so excited. And to me, I mean, it's so humbling to me that people do that, or, you know, even the people that don't hunt them, that just, you know, have them in their house. That's a pretty personal thing. So,
yeah, I mean, you know, like today's decoys, you get them at the end of the season at Walmart for like $10, and they just beat around. The paint comes off of them. You just replace them next year. But
well, let me ask you this. Well, last time you went to an antique store, you know, how many plastic decoys?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't.
No, you see the wood ones though, don't you?
Absolutely. And I picked up it, on that side of me is a cork goose. Supposedly it came from somewhere up in Michigan. I don't know. But there ain't no names on it or nothing. There ain't nothing to tell where it came from. No markings.
Well, send me a picture of it after the show, and I bet you I can find out.
I'll pull it. It's pretty old. But the thing about it is, what I really like is, obviously it's old, but I mean, there's chunks. You know, some like what you were talking about, a story. Somebody shot that decoy, you know? And I don't know if this head's original, but I mean, it's wood, dowel, and then down on the bottom is cork on wood, and then you got your metal.
Yeah, it's got a bottom board.
Right. But I mean, I just love this decoy. I mean, this is like you said. I mean, I wonder how many times it's been hunted over. You don't know.
No, that's I do a lot of collecting too, and I collect pretty much Michigan decoys. I like them all, but I really like Ben and Frank Schmidt. They're from Centerline, Michigan, and they carved, I think, up into about the 50s. They kind of quit carving. But those are the birds I really like. And then, some other well-known Michigan carvers like Reg Eye. And then I was telling you about Chris Smith in at our camp from Chris Craft Boats. So he made a bunch of decoys, and it's really, really hard to find them. And I get a message from a guy down in Louisiana, and he says, I got a Chris Smith decoy here. You want to buy it? And I says, what's it doing down there? And he says, my grandfather used to travel up there and hunt at his lodge.
Wow.
And so he would bring all these decoys back. But I'll show it to you right here. This is probably one of my pride and joys. I mean, this decoy's from the 1800s.
Wow.
And it's all original paint, has been repainted. And, it's the reason I wanted it so bad because of what it represents. It's where I hunt at. Without that guy, we wouldn't have our camp.
Exactly.
So
a lot of history.
Yeah, that's why it was so important for me to get it. But I love Michigan decoys, and there's a fellow up here. His name's Ron Snow, and I've been buying his decoys from him for the last few years. Usually I get a couple pair a year. I'm kind of helping support a carver, and I collect his families. He's a carver. His dad was a carver. His uncle was a carver. His brother was a carver. His nephew was a carver. And so that's what I like. My Michigan birds and stuff like that. And we see a fair amount of Ohio bird or Ontario birds over here as well. So
what's up with this pickleweed decoy?
The infamous pickleweed decoy. Okay, we were talking about what we were going to talk about and stuff, and I saw you put pickleweed decoys on there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to do this to me, isn't he? All right, so I got a couple right here, and they're shovelers. So this is the hen, and here's the drake. I'll go over the anatomy. I'll go over the anatomy and this stuff.
I haven't seen anybody carving any. That don't mean that there ain't nobody else carving them, but
yeah, they kind of look like something you'd find at like a fair, like an elephant ear,
like a popsicle.
Well, so basically what it is, so people that see this, they kind of understand, is you kind of got the breast and a little bit of back and the head,
right,
and it's on a stake. Okay, and so the idea is if you've ever hunted like eelgrass or flooded shoreline brush, buck brush, stuff like that, different stuff, you'll see ducks up in there feeding, and they'll stick their heads up, right?
Yeah.
So they're if you got grass covering up to here, and then this is sticking in the ground, and so I've never seen them, and there's a carver, a friend of mine. He makes a fair amount of them. He kind of uses the scrap cork and stuff to make them. And so
did you come up with that pickleweed, or is that the style that they call them?
Yeah, that's what they call them. So I think where it kind of came from is California. So I've seen other carvers make a few of these pickleweeds before. And to me, I mean, I thought it was just kind of like a novelty thing. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't really, I wasn't really excited. Like, I got to carve some pickleweed decoys, you know?
Right.
And I don't know. I just thought it was kind of goofy, I guess. And so I get a call from this guy out in California, and he says, we got a Ducks Unlimited thing coming up. We want some pickleweed decoys. And I says, okay. Well, what are you looking for? And he's, well, some shovelers, some pintails, and this and this and this. And when do you need them by? And I said, all right. So I made them up, and then I don't know, something fell through or whatever. And so I think I had 6 of these things. They called me and they said they changed what they were doing, and I said, all right. So okay, I got 6 of these pickleweeds. So 3 were pintails and 3 were shovelers. And 2 drakes and a hen of each. And so I don't really, where I hunt, it's kind of, I don't really see me using them, you know?
Right.
So I'm like, oh, I'll put them up on my page and maybe somebody will buy them, right? And so a local guy here, he bought a bunch of decoys from me. I've been working on stuff for him all year. And he got the pintails, and he just loves them, man. He's got them in his man cave, and he just thinks they're the greatest thing in the world. And I got this other set of shovelers here, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with them. I've had some people show interest in them, and I don't know. It's a different thing. I don't really see it really working in Michigan too much. I mean, I'm sure there are areas, but I think it's kind of a California thing. That's where it came from.
I got you. So you talked about carving some other stuff. I know you talked about the cardinal, and on your Facebook page, there's a lot of other stuff you're carving now. So talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. So we've done cardinals and doves. Here's a killdeer. If you're familiar with what that is.
Absolutely. We got a ton of them down here.
Yeah.
So are you carving them for your personal, or are you selling them too, or you?
Oh yeah. Both.
What?
That one's from my collection. That's I've got the honeydew section at the house. So but yeah, I've done woodpeckers. I mean, woodpeckers, doves, cardinals, all kinds of different shorebirds. I'm actually going to be doing an owl this winter. I'm kind of excited about doing that one. Oh heck, what else? Oh, I'm doing some walleye right now. A couple fish.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm fixing to pull that back up now on the screen here. Let's see. There's a.
That was a antique swan for. Now, obviously, that's just a small. You know, it's like 20 inches. Right. Pretty much, my godson got married last weekend, and his bride wanted one.
No, you showed that one.
Huh?
That I was scrolling past some of this stuff that. I mean, that one right there is pretty cool. That you got like is artwork with artwork on the bottom.
Oh, with the mural, yeah.
Right.
You know, I did. We were talking about camp, right? And you were saying like how all the cattails and the grasses and stuff behind the cabin, right?
Right.
So one of the guys wanted to get his dad a decoy, and he said, just make something nice for him. So I did a shoveler for him, and on the bottom, that image that you saw of our cabin on the water, I painted that on the bottom for him.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, that's in his collection.
There's a pintail. And there's the fish.
Yep. Now what you're looking at, and this is kind of funny, people don't read the captions sometimes. So that fish right there is actually not a carving. That's a study cast. Okay. So what that is kind of like a mold of like a fish, right? So yeah. What I'm doing is I'm using that mold right there on that block of wood, and I'm going to trace that fish out. And then when you start to carve it, now I have reference. And that's the biggest thing in carving. If you want to do, just smooth gunners and that kind of stuff and real rudimentary kind of paint jobs, reference really isn't that important. But if you're trying to make something kind of pop, or you're getting really into carving like this fish, reference is huge. And what I mean by reference is different pictures, from different angles, different light, and all that kind of stuff. So, like when I'm painting something, I mean, now I've done so many birds now, I can kind of do things without looking at something all the time. But if I'm doing a new species, like a fish like that,
right,
you gotta have some kind of reference. So I bought the study cast, and that's what that's gonna do. That's hopefully my carving will look just like that. That's what I'm trying to do. So, but I posted that, and then I put on there, hey, this is a study cast, some of that kind of stuff, and I got a bunch of emails. People were like, oh, so some full body pintails I just finished up.
Them look like all wood there, ain't they?
Oh yeah, I don't really do that much cork anymore, to be honest with you. I've got an order for a good friend that really wants some cork decoys, but I'll be honest with you, the price of cork is so expensive now, it's insane. And I try to explain that to people, because back in the day, cork was so cheap, right. And you could build a rig of decoys, or, you could get old refrigeration cork or Wiley cork really cheap. You could go buy, a sheet of cork, which is like enough to do like, 8 or 10 big mallards for like, $40. Heck, now for me to get one sheet of cork to my house is like $175, $180.
Wow. I watched a video not too long ago how they made cork and all that, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it all comes from Portugal. So
yeah.
But as you can see, I like to have fun in my pictures. I don't take myself too serious.
Well, life is hard as it is anyway.
But
I'm just scrolling through Facebook, which I know you're on the phone, so the picture is probably even smaller. But I mean, I'm just showing. I mean, you have a huge collection of decoys, and there's a bird, a red-winged blackbird.
Yep.
With a beautiful wood duck in the background.
Yeah, I do a lot of wood ducks.
Actually, 2 wood ducks there.
Yeah.
That's pretty much our state bird.
Carolina wood duck, right?
No. They come in that first 30 seconds, and then they're gone, and if you didn't shoot, that might have been the only thing you shoot that day. I mean, that's
it's different up here. They'll fly all day up here.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Just getting a pile. That's how our teal are up here. If you don't shoot a blue-wing teal by the first 30 minutes of shooting time, that you're not going to get one.
Yeah.
But wood ducks will fly all day.
That's crazy. No, that first 30 minutes, they done. I like that. I like this one here. Look like it's sleeping.
Oh, yeah.
Or resting.
Yeah, that's out in Illinois. He's actually gave that to a friend of mine. He sent me an old decoy. I've been wanting to get one of these Ralph Reggie decoys from Michigan. And wouldn't you know it, he finds this decoy, this antique decoy, and whoever the previous owner had the same last name as me, and they wrote it on the bottom. And he said it was God's will for me to own that decoy. So
wow.
He called me and he sent it to me. So I sent him that sleeper. And I do a lot of old school decoys sometimes like that, where they're kind of dull, and I really like the way they look. And but I'd say probably wood ducks and those songbirds there. That was a fun story. A friend of mine, his wife's best friend, had twins, and they named them Wren and Lark. So I got conned into carving those for him. A Wren and a Lark.
That's actually pretty cool. Really cool. Well, I know we've been about almost an hour and a half talking. You got some amazing work. I love seeing it on Facebook, and I got one of them, and I love ruddy ducks too. I just like watching them swim around. People talk about they ain't no real duck. They just swim to your decoys, but I like them all. They all pretty birds.
They're tasty too.
What normally I would almost agree with you. Absolutely, I love cooking them up. But last year, I don't know where this one ruddy duck came from. He was so gamey that I just couldn't eat it. I mean, it was just, and there's no telling what he might have been eating. But normally you put it in the crock pot and gravy and rice, and they real good eating. But that last one, it was just super gamey.
Yeah, he was probably eating more shellfish, where usually they're vegetarians. So
yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no telling what he might have been eating off of. So before we close out, how does someone get in touch with you? What's the best way, and what is some of the social media stuff that you got?
So all my stuff is on Facebook and Instagram. I had a website. I dropped it because honestly, I was getting so much traffic from the social media. It just didn't, it wasn't conducive, but I'm building some stuff up this winter. I'm going to have some merchandise and some different stuff. It'll be like an online store. But until that, I'll post that at a later time. But at Longtail Decoys is Facebook and Instagram. And you can message me through there, or you can email me at longtaildecoys@gmail.com. And my phone number is on my Facebook page too. So, I get a lot of old school people that just want to talk on the phone, and and they'll end up conversations just like this. Sometimes I'll be like, holy smokes, it's midnight. I've been on the phone with this guy from Arizona. So,
yeah, because I mean, different time zones.
Yep. I'm really good about getting back to people, shoot me a message. And I do post random decoys for sale, kind of like your ruddy duck. Sometimes I'll just get a hankering and I'm waiting for something to dry, and I'll be like, I'm going to carve a widgeon tonight, and I'll just do it. And then I'll paint it at the end of the week and I'll put it up for sale. And so, but yeah, that's really how to get a hold of me.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I greatly appreciate it. I learned a lot more about you, some cool history. I do appreciate you accepting the offer to come on, and one day I'm gonna get up there. I hunt with you. I want to see that cabin and maybe raise the flag and let them know I'm there. Hey, RD's here. He ain't gonna hit no birds, but the flag's up.
Yeah, we'd love to have you up, and there's a lot to Michigan, not just with the hunting and stuff, but like I said, the history and the stories, and there's just some really cool stuff up here. And I think you need to just get up here, whether you go hunting or not, and bring the family up maybe too, and just kind of do some cruising, because there's so much to do here, and it's such a beautiful state.
Be my luck, I get up there and it snows 6 feet, and I wouldn't know what to do with 6 feet. I don't own clothes for 6 feet of snow.
Where I'm at, typically we don't get more than a foot at a time, and that's pretty rare. So, but way up there, we got snowed into a cabin last winter, and we were stuck there for 4 days. We couldn't leave. So. But we had some fun. So
I imagine so. I mean, you make the best of it, but yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate everybody dropping in. There was a bunch of viewers going in and out, and some comments. And like I said, if you're watching this on YouTube, add me on podcast. You can find these videos turned into podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, pretty much anywhere that you stream podcasts, you can find my podcast. And share this video, get the word out, and go like his Instagram and Facebook. And I'll be talking to you soon, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, RD. I appreciate you reaching out and allowing this opportunity for me as well.
All right, good talking to you. All right, people. Until next time, see you.